Gather round now, children. Pull your souls close to this old fire that's burned longer than the Mississippi's got bends. I's telling you a tale that ain't in no white man's book, ain't on no plantation ledger. This here story lives in the marrow of our bones, in the salt of tears that soaked the auction block, in the blood-red Georgia clay that drank our people's sweat like communion wine. You see that woman over yonder in your mind's eye, that one with the smile sweet as sorghum molasses, the one they called Lila, obedient Lila, faithful Lila, smiling through the whip and the chain and the violation. Lord have mercy, that smile wasn't what the masters thought it was. No, sir, that smile was a loaded gun, child. That smile was patience sharpening itself on stone, waiting for the night when reckoning would come dressed in Sunday supper. They took everything from her. Her mama sold downriver, her babies ripped from her breast, her body claimed by hands that had no right. And through it all, she smiled, like she was blessed, like she was grateful, like she was broken. But listen here, folk. In them dark quarters where the enslaved whispered prayers the white Jesus never heard, Lila was learning something the masters couldn't see. She was learning the language of roots and retribution. She was counting sins like rosary beads. She was remembering every cruelty in a ledger the Harlan family would pay in full. This is the story of the night one woman's obedience ended, and a whole bloodline went down to judgment. Now hush your mouths and lean in close. The ancestors are listening, and this tale demands respect. The middle passage, they call it. Middle. Like it was something in between two decent places. But ain't nothing middle about hell, children. Ain't nothing middle about being packed in the belly of a ship like salted fish, breathing air thick with death, vomit, and the prayers of folks who still believed God could hear 'em down there in the dark. Lila, though she wasn't Lila yet, she was still Amina, daughter of the Ashanti, granddaughter of warriors, lay chained to her mama in that sufferin' hold. She was maybe 8 summers, maybe 9. Time loses meaning when you're cargo. The ship rocked and groaned like a beast in pain, and all around her, bodies swayed with the waves, some still breathing, some gone to the ancestors already but still chained to the living. Sweet Jesus. The stench alone was enough to kill hope. Her mama sang to her in their language, the old tongue that the white devils couldn't understand. Sang soft and low, even though her voice was cracked from thirst and screaming. "Amina," she whispered, gripping the girl's small hand with fingers that trembled. "You gon' survive this, you hear me? You gon' live. Don't matter what they do to your body. Keep your soul, child. Keep your name in your heart where they can't take it." But Lord of Glory, that ship took so much already. Took her papa, thrown overboard when the fever got him. Took her little brother, who stopped crying on the 3rd week and never cried again. Took the women who jumped into the ocean, rather than face what waited on the other side. The sharks followed that ship like it was their faithful provider, and every day, Amina heard the splash, splash, splash of bodies being given to the deep. When they finally saw land, Charleston, South Carolina, that cursed port where so many African souls first touched American dirt, it wasn't no promised land. It was just another kind of bondage waiting. The crew dragged them up from below deck, and mercy me, the sunlight was knives in their eyes. They'd been in darkness so long. Amina stumbled onto the dock, still holding her mama's hand, both of them naked as the day they was born, covered in filth and shame. White men in fine clothes walked around them like they was inspecting horses, prodding, touching, opening mouths to check teeth. One of them, a fat man with a red face slick with sweat, squeezed Amina's arm and nodded. "This one's got good bones," he said. "She'll work." Her mama started wailing then, not loud but deep, a sound that came from the bottom of her soul. She knew what was coming. The old ones warned us, child. They always know. The auction block rose up before him like an altar to the devil himself. The auctioneer, a man with a voice like thunder, started his calling. "Strong Ashanti woman, good for field or house. And looky here, her pickaninny too." A man in a tall black hat, Master Silas Harlan, though Amina didn't know his name yet, stepped forward. He had cold eyes, the kind that looked through you like you was already dead. He bought her mama for $300. Then he turned to little Amina, smiled a smile that had no warmth in it, and said to the auctioneer, "I'll take the girl separate. Ship the woman to my cousin in Alabama. That's when time stopped. That's when Amina learned the first lesson of survival in this new hell. They could take everything. Your land, your language, your body, your God. But the one thing that would keep you alive was knowing how to hide your heart. Her mama screamed, fought against the chains, called out Amina's true name over and over while they dragged her toward a different wagon. And Amina, she stood there on that dock, tears streaming down her face, and something inside her smiled. Not because she was happy. No, sir. But because her face froze that way, locked in the expression that said, I'm nothing, I'm harmless. Don't hurt me. Master Harlan looked down at her, this little African girl with a smile that didn't reach her eyes, and he nodded. Good, he said, patting her head like she was a dog that learned a trick. You gonna be just fine in Georgia, girl. Smile like that and I'll make sure you eat regular. That night in the slave pen before the journey south, Amina whispered her real name one last time. Then she buried it deep, deep down, where no white man could find it. From that day forward, she was Lila, smiling Lila, obedient Lila, and the Georgia red clay was waiting to drink her story. The wagon rolled through red dust roads for 3 days and nights, carrying Lila and 6 other purchased souls toward the Harlan plantation in the heart of Georgia. She sat in the back, her small body bouncing with every rut, that frozen smile still on her face even though her eyes saw everything. The endless pine forests, the swamps thick with Spanish moss hanging like the beards of dead men, the occasional white house rising up like a temple to stolen wealth. The overseer who drove the wagon, a mean-faced man named Cobb with a whip coiled at his hip like a snake, kept looking back at her. Queer little thing, he muttered to his companion. Ain't cried once, just keep smiling. When they finally arrived, Lord have mercy. The plantation spread out before him like a kingdom built on suffering. The big house sat on a hill, all white columns and wide verandas, its windows catching the sun like eyes watching everything below. And below, stretching toward the horizon, were the cotton fields, rows and rows of white bowls waiting to be picked under a burning August sun that showed no mercy for weakness. But what made Lila's heart sink like a stone in deep water was the quarters. Them slave cabins lined up like a village of sorrow, rough wooden shacks with gaps in the walls, dirt floors, chimneys made of sticks and clay. Smoke rose from some of them where folks was cooking whatever scraps they could find. Children with bellies swollen from hunger played in the dust. Women with bent backs carried water from the creek. And everywhere, was the smell of sweat, wood smoke, and resignation. Get down, Cobb ordered, cracking his whip in the air just to hear it sing. You belong to Master Harlan now. You work when he say work. You eat when he say eat. You sleep when he say sleep. And if you run, he grinned, showing brown teeth. Well, them dogs got a taste for dark meat. Lila climbed down from the wagon, her legs shaking from the long ride. An old woman, skin like aged leather, and eyes that had seen too much, shuffled over and took her hand. Come on, child, she whispered. I'll show you where you sleep. My name's Aunt Dinah. I've been here since Master Harlan's daddy owned this cursed ground. That first night in the quarters, Lila learned the rhythm of plantation life. The horn blowing before dawn, calling folks to the fields. The drivers shout, "Get up, get moving," followed by the crack of the whip if anybody moved too slow. The endless hours bent over cotton plants, fingers bleeding from the sharp bowls, sun beaten down like God's own punishment. The meager supper of cornbread and fatback. The spirituals sung low and mournful in the praise house, asking Jesus to steal away their souls to freedom. But Lila, she kept smiling. When the overseer barked at her, she smiled and said, "Yes, When the older children mocked her for being too small, too African, too strange, she smiled and kept working. When Master Harlan himself rode through the fields on his fine horse, inspecting his property, and his eyes lingered on her longer than they should, she smiled up at him like he was the sunrise itself. Years passed like that, suffering so bad, hurting something terrible, but surviving. Lila grew tall and strong, her body hardening from the labor. her hands becoming expert at picking cotton faster than most grown men. The smile never left her face, but behind it, deep in the place where she'd buried her true name, something else was growing. Something patient, something watchful. By the time she was 16, she could carry 2 full baskets of cotton on her head without spilling a single bowl. She could work from can't see in the morning to can't see at night without complaint. And that smile, Lord, that smile, became famous across the plantation. That Lila, folks would say, shaking their heads. She blessed or she crazy. Ain't natural to smile that much in bondage. One evening, as the sun was setting like blood spilling across the sky, Overseer Cobb approached Master Harlan on the veranda of the big house. Lila was in the yard drawing water from the well, that eternal smile on her face even though her back screamed from the day's labor. "Master," Cobb said, spitting tobacco juice over the rail, "that girl Lila, she's wasted in the fields. She's obedient as a church mouse, clean, and the other slaves respect her. Mistress Eliza's been complaining about needing help in the house. I recommend we bring Lila up here." Master Harlan stood there on his veranda, hands clasped behind his back, watching Lila work. His eyes followed the curve of her back, the strength in her arms, the way the evening light caught her skin. He was quiet for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Send her to the big house tomorrow," he said, his voice like gravel. "That girl..." He paused, a strange smile crossing his face. "That girl's gonna be useful. Real useful." And that's when the true suffering began. In the big house, Lila learned a different kind of bondage. She scrubbed floors till her knees bled, polished silver till she could see her smiling face reflected back like a ghost, and served the Harlan family their meals while they talked about her like she wasn't even human. "Pass the gravy, Lila. Fetch my shawl, Lila. You're so obedient, Lila. Why can't the field hands be more like you?" But come Sunday evenings, when the work was done and the masters retired to their parlor, Lila would slip out to the quarters, back to her people. That's where she met Isaiah. Lord have mercy. That man was beautiful, tall as a cypress tree, shoulders broad from years carrying cotton sacks, eyes that held fire even though his back was striped with scars from the overseer's whip. He worked the fields, strong-backed man, never complained, never broke. The old ones said he had royal blood in him, that his granddaddy was a chief back in the motherland. They first spoke by the creek one twilight, where folks went to wash away the day's dirt. Lila was fetching water when she saw him sitting on a rock, staring at the running water like it held secrets. "You that smiling girl from the big house," he said without looking at her. His voice was deep, like thunder rolling slow. "I am," she replied, setting down her bucket. And for the first time in years, the smile faded just a little. "But I ain't always smiling inside." He turned then, his eyes meeting hers, and something passed between them that the masters could never understand. Recognition, soul knowing soul, suffering speaking to suffering. They started meeting in secret after that. In the dark of night, when the patrollers was sleeping off their whiskey, when the moon hid its face behind clouds, Isaiah would whistle low outside her cabin, a sound like a whippoorwill, and Lila would slip out like smoke. They'd meet in the cornfields or down by the baptizing pond, holding each other like they could squeeze out all the pain of bondage just by pressing their bodies close. One day, Isaiah would whisper against her neck, "We gon' run. Follow that drinking gourd north. Find that underground railroad folks whisper about. Be free, Lila, you and me." And she'd smile, but this time it was real, tender-like, full of sweetness, and kiss him soft. One day, she'd echo back, though somewhere deep she knew it was just a dream slaves told themselves to survive another sunrise. 6 months of stolen nights passed. Then Lila's belly started to swell. She tried to hide it under her apron, but Aunt Dinah noticed, pulled her aside one morning and said, "Chili, you carryin', who the daddy?" "Isaiah," Lila whispered, her hand going to her stomach, protective-like. The old woman's face went grave. "Massa find out you been sneaking around, there'll be hell to pay. They don't like us lovin' who we choose. They want to breed us like animals, pick who mates with who. But Lila was love-struck, couldn't help herself. She told Isaiah about the baby one night and he wept, actually wept, pressing his ear against her belly like he could hear the future beating inside. "Our Chili," he said, voice choked. "Ours." That's when Overseer Cobb's shadow fell across them. He'd followed Lila from the big house, suspicious of her late-night wanderings. His whip was already uncoiled in his hand, and his grin was the devil's own. "Well, well," he drawled. "Looks like somebody been meddling where they shouldn't." Isaiah stood up, putting himself between Lila and the Overseer. "Please, sir." The whip cracked across his face before he could finish. Then again, and again. Cobb beat him right there in front of Lila. Beat him till blood soaked the ground, till Isaiah's back was just raw meat. And the whole time he made Lila watch. "This what happens," Cobb snarled between lashes, "when slaves forget their place." The next morning, Master Harlan had Isaiah dragged to the whipping post in the center of the quarters. Made every enslaved person, man, woman, Chili, come watch as the driver laid 50 lashes across Isaiah's already torn back. Lila stood there, forced to witness that smile frozen on her face even as tears streamed silent down her cheeks. Isaiah's eyes found hers once through the pain, and she saw something die in him. Not his love for her, but his hope. When it was over, they threw him back in his cabin to heal or die, whichever came first. And Master Harlan turned to Lila, gripped her chin rough. "You," he said low, his breath hot on her face, "belong to me. Every part of you. Don't forget it." That night, alone in her cabin, Lila felt her baby kick for the first time. And the smile never wavered. But inside, oh, inside, something started to crack. After Isaiah's whipping, Lila's world inside the big house became her prison complete. Master Harlan watched her closer now, his eyes following her movements through the rooms like a hawk tracking a field mouse. Mistress Eliza, that frail woman with her laudanum habit and bitter tongue, grew suspicious too, assigning Lila more tasks to keep her busy, keep her tired, keep her from thinking about that man in the quarters. Lila cleaned every corner of that house till she knew it better than her own heartbeat. She learned which floorboards creaked, which doors the masters left unlocked, which windows faced the quarters where Isaiah was healing slow. She polished the master's boots, mended the children's clothes, and served supper with that everlasting smile, while the Harlan family discussed their business like she was furniture. That's how she learned about the debts. One evening, serving roast chicken and buttered greens, she overheard Master Harlan arguing with his brother-in-law in the parlor. Their voices carried through the walls. "Silas, you're in deep," the brother-in-law said, sounding worried sick. "That poker game in Savannah, you lost $4,000. 4,000. The creditors are circling like buzzards." Master Harlan's voice was slurred from whiskey. "I'll pay it back, got plenty of property." He meant slaves. He always meant slaves when he said property. "You better sell some off soon or they'll take the whole plantation." Lila's hands didn't shake as she poured more wine. Her smile didn't falter, but inside her mind was counting, calculating, understanding for the first time that her life, her baby's life, was just currency to Master Harlan. Numbers in a ledger, collateral for his gambling habit. She started paying closer attention after that. Listened at doorways, watched who came and went. The creditors visited twice, men in fine suits with hard faces, and each time they left, Master Harlan would storm through the house in a rage, smashing glasses, yelling at his wife. "We need money," he'd roar. "Goddamn cotton prices dropping and I got mouths to feed." Mistress Eliza, pitiful soul, would cower and suggest, perhaps we could sell some of the younger ones. They fetch good prices in Charleston." That's when Lila understood. They'd sell her baby when it came. The child was born on a cold February night in her cabin, with only Aunt Dinah to help. A boy, perfect, beautiful, with Isaiah's eyes and Lila's high cheekbones. She held him while he cried his first cry. And for a moment, just a moment, her smile was real, pure. "His name's Elijah," she whispered, pressing him to her chest. Like the prophet, gonna carry him to freedom someday. But 8 years passed, and freedom never came. Elijah grew strong and quick, helping in the stable, learning to shoe horses. Isaiah, recovered but forever marked by them scars, watched his son from a distance. They weren't allowed to speak much, overseer's orders. The love between Lila and Isaiah had gone underground, surviving in glances across the yard, in prayers whispered at night. Then came the day Master Harlan called Lila to his study. "Lila," he said, shuffling papers on his desk without looking at her. "I need you to understand something. This plantation's bleeding money. I got debts that won't wait. Your boy, Elijah, he's 8 now, good age, strong." Her heart stopped beating. Just stopped. "There's a trader coming tomorrow from Alabama. He'll pay $700 for him." The smile stayed on her face. Had to. If it dropped, she'd scream. If she screamed, they'd whip her. If they whipped her, she couldn't protect what little was left. "Yes, sir, master," she said, voice sweet as honey. "Whatever you say, sir." He looked up then, surprised maybe by how easy she took it. "You're a good nagger, Lila. Obedient. That's why you'll always have a place here." That night she tried to run with Elijah, tried to steal away toward the North Star with her boy's hand in hers. But the patrollers caught him 2 miles out. Dogs tearing at their clothes, rifles pointed at their heads. They dragged him back. Made Isaiah watch the next morning as the trader loaded Elijah into a wagon. The boy screamed for his mama, reaching out, and Lila, Lord help her. She smiled and waved. "Be good now, Elijah, mind your manners." The wagon rolled away in dust and heartbreak. Isaiah collapsed to his knees in the dirt, broken at last. And Lila? She walked back to the big house, went to the kitchen, and started preparing the master's breakfast. That smile never left her face. But Aunt Dinah, watching from the doorway, crossed herself and whispered, "That girl done sold her soul now." She's smiling, but her heart just died. Not died, old woman, transformed into something patient, something waiting. After Elijah was gone, Lila moved through the big house like a ghost, there but not there, smiling but hollow. She served the family their meals, washed their clothes, tucked the white children into bed at night while her own boy was somewhere in Alabama, probably working fields under a stranger's whip. Isaiah stopped eating regular. Folks in the quarters said his spirit was broken clean through, that he'd aged 10 years in 10 days. But the masters? They barely noticed. To them, it was just business. One less mouth to feed, $700 toward the debt. Master Harlan even boasted about it at supper one night while Lila stood in the corner holding a pitcher of sweet tea. "Got a fair price for that buck," he told his wife, cutting into his pork chop. "Trader said he'd work him hard on the cotton press. Good investment for him." Mistress Eliza dabbed her mouth with a napkin. "You should sell more. We still need at least $2,000 to clear the Savannah debt." Lila's hands didn't shake. The smile stayed put. But inside, where her true name was buried, where her mama's song still echoed, a voice whispered, "You gon' pay. Every last one of you." That night, alone in her cabin, Isaiah had been moved to a different shack by overseer's orders, punishment for the escape attempt. Lila sat on the dirt floor and stared at the wall. She didn't cry. Couldn't anymore. The tears had dried up like a creek in August. Instead, she spoke to her boy like he could hear her across the miles. "Elijah, baby," she whispered to the darkness. "Mama's sorry. Mama couldn't save you. But I swear on the ancestors, on the bones of our people in the bottom of the Atlantic, on every drop of blood this Georgia clay done drank, I swear they gon' answer for this. Master Harlan, Mistress Eliza, every one of them. One day." The promise hung in the air like smoke from a conjure fire. Months dragged by. Lila got pregnant again, this time from Isaiah in a desperate nighttime encounter by the creek, both of them just needing to feel something other than grief. When her belly started showing, Mistress Eliza noticed right away. "You're breeding again," she said, her voice cold as January frost. "Whose is it this time?" "Isaiah's, ma'am," Lila answered, head bowed, smiling soft. "That field hand." Mistress Eliza's lip curled. Well, at least this one might fetch a good price too. Girls sell better young and boys at 8 or 9. She said it casual, like she was discussing vegetable prices at market. Lila's daughter was born that winter, a tiny thing with big eyes and her mama's cursed smile already forming on her baby lips. Lila named her Mercy, though she knew there wasn't none of that in this world. She loved that child fierce, nursed her in secret moments stolen between chores, sang her the old African songs Aunt Dinah remembered, taught her to be invisible when the masters walked by. "Don't let 'em see you, baby," Lila would whisper. "Don't let 'em know you special." But Mercy was special, quick-minded, gentle-hearted, beautiful in a way that made folks stop and stare. By the time she was 5 years old, she could read a little. Lila had taught her from a Bible she'd stolen from the parlor, could sing spirituals that made grown men weep, and had that same smile her mama wore. Only on Mercy, it was still innocent, still real. That's what damned her. Young Master Thomas Harlan, now 17, mean as his daddy but with a cruel streak all his own, noticed Mercy one Sunday after church. Watched her playing in the yard with the other children, her laughter ringing like bells. He called Overseer Cobb over and pointed. "That little yellow gal," he said, using the ugly word for children born from forced mixin'. "She'd make a good house servant. Bring her up to polish my boots, fetch my things." Cobb nodded. "Yes, sir, Master Thomas, she's Lila's girl." "Even better, Lila's obedient. The child will be too." So Mercy was brought into the big house, made to serve the young master personal-like. And Lila watched, her smile fixed in place, as her daughter became Thomas's plaything. Not in the worst way yet, she was too young, but in a way that promised horror coming. He'd make Mercy stand for hours holding his coat. He'd pinch her arm if she moved too slow. He'd mock her when she got scared, laughing at her tears. Once he pushed her down the stairs just to watch her tumble. Lila cleaned up the blood from her daughter's split lip, smiling the whole time, whispering, "It's gonna be all right, baby. Mama's here." But that night, when everyone was asleep, Lila went outside and stood under the stars. She looked up at that vast darkness and spoke to whatever gods was listening, African Orishas, Christian angels, or the conjure spirits in the swamp. "One day," she said quiet but firm, "Vocês vão pagar. You gon' pay." The wind picked up, rustling through the cotton fields like it was answering back soon, soon. Mercy grew under the shadow of the big house like a flower trying to bloom in poisoned soil. By the time she turned 7, she'd learned her mama's survival trick. That smile that said, "I'm harmless, don't hurt me." But Lord have mercy, on that child's face it looked different. Where Lila's smile was armor forged in years of suffering, Mercy's still held traces of hope, of innocence that hadn't been fully beaten down yet. Young Master Thomas was 18 now, strutting around the plantation like he owned not just the land, but every soul on it. And he'd decided Mercy was his favorite pet, his personal servant to torment as he pleased, made her follow him everywhere, to the stables, to the parlor, even to his bedroom where she'd stand in the corner while he dressed, her eyes fixed on the floor. "Look at me when I talk to you," he'd command, and she would, that smile trembling on her lips. "That's better. You're pretty when you smile, just like your mama." Lila watched it all from the kitchen, her hands washing dishes, her own smile never faltering even as her heart screamed. She'd tried to warn Mercy in whispers late at night. "Keep your eyes down, baby. Don't talk back, don't give him no reason." But children don't understand the full weight of bondage yet. Mercy still believed if she was good enough, obedient enough, maybe the young master would be kind. She learned different one afternoon when she accidentally dropped his silver pocket watch while polishing it. The watch cracked against the marble floor, and Thomas's face went red as blood. "You clumsy little..." He grabbed her by the hair, yanked her head back, and slapped her so hard she saw stars. "That was my grandfather's, worth more than your whole worthless hide." Mercy fell to the floor, tears streaming, but even through the pain, that cursed smile crept back onto her face, automatic, trained. "I'm sorry, Master Thomas," she whispered, her voice tiny. "I'm so sorry, sir." He stared down at her, breathing hard, then suddenly laughed. "Look at that. Even crying, you're smiling. just like Lila. He reached down, gripped her chin rough. Maybe I should keep you around after all. You're entertaining. When Lila found out, Mercy came to her later with a bruise blooming purple on her cheek. She held her daughter close and said nothing, just rocked her slow while that eternal smile stayed frozen on her face. But inside Lila was making a list. Every cruelty, every violation, every sin against her children. Master Thomas, first name on the list. Isaiah had been reduced to a ghost of himself by then, working the fields like a man already dead. The overseers didn't even need to whip him no more. He was that broken. But one Sunday when he saw Mercy's bruised face at the praise house, something flickered in his eyes, something that looked like rage trying to resurrect itself. He found Lila by the well that evening. "They hurtin' our baby," he said, his voice rough from disuse. "I know," Lila replied, her smile never wavering. "We got to do something. Run again. Take Mercy this time." "And get caught again?" Lila's voice was soft, almost gentle. "And watch them sell her farther south, or worse." She touched his scarred face with her work-worn hands. "No, Isaiah. Running ain't the answer." "Then what is?" His eyes searched hers, desperate. She looked at him long and hard, and for just a moment, just a flicker, her smile turned into something else. Something that would have made the devil himself step back. "Patience," she said. "And poison." Before he could ask what she meant, Mistress Eliza's voice called from the big house. "Lila, where are you, girl? Master needs his supper." Lila turned away from Isaiah, her smile bright as sunshine, and called back, "Coming, ma'am, right away." She walked toward that house of horrors, her hips swaying, her face pleasant, looking for all the world like the most obedient slave in Georgia. But in her apron pocket, hidden in a small cloth, were 3 seeds she'd taken from the garden. Castor beans, deadly if prepared right. She'd been studying plants for years now, asking innocent questions of the old root women in the quarters, pretending it was just curiosity, learning which roots healed and which ones killed, which mushrooms made you sick and which ones stopped your heart. The masters thought she was learning herb medicine to tend their ailments. Fools. That night, after the family was fed and sleeping, Lila ground one of the castor beans into fine powder and mixed it with lard. She fed it to the master's hunting dog that had been sick. Testing, always testing. The dog was dead by morning. "Looks like the distemper got him," Master Harlan said, shaking his head. "Lila, dispose of it." "Yes, sir," she replied, smiling wide. "Whatever you say, sir." As she dragged the dog's body to the burn pit, she whispered to it, "You first, then them." It started on a night when the moon was hiding its face, ashamed maybe of what it was about to witness. Lila was in her cabin behind the big house, a slightly better shack than the field quarters with a real bed frame and a small window. She'd just laid down, exhausted from a day of cooking, cleaning, and watching Mercy suffer under Thomas's casual cruelties, when she heard the door creak open. She knew who it was before she even turned around. Could smell the whiskey on his breath. Hear the heavy footsteps of a man who believed everything in his world belonged to him, including her. "Evening, Lila," Master Harlan said, his voice thick with drink and something darker. He shut the door behind him, sliding the bolt into place. "Don't get up, stay just like that." Her body went rigid, but that smile, Lord, that cursed smile, stayed right where it always was. She turned to face him, her voice sweet and obedient. "Master Harlan, sir, is there something you need? I can fetch—" "You know what I need," he interrupted, moving toward her bed. His eyes were heavy-lidded, dangerous. "Been watching you for years now, obedient Lila. Always smiling, always pleasing. Well, tonight you're gonna please me proper. What happened next ain't something I can describe in full detail, children. Some sufferings are too deep, too violating to speak plain. But know this. Master Harlan took what wasn't his to take, and he did it with the certainty of a man who'd never faced consequences for nothing in his life. And Lila? She smiled through every moment of it, her mind going somewhere else. Back to Africa, back to her mama's arms. Anywhere but that cabin, anywhere but her own body being used like property. When he was done, he stood up, adjusted his clothes, and tossed a penny on the bed. "You're a good girl, Lila," he said, like he'd just paid for regular services. "This stays between us, understand? Don't want the mistress getting all worked up." "Yes, sir, master," she replied, her voice steady despite the trembling in her bones. "I won't say nothing to nobody, sir." He left, and Lila lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling. She didn't cry, didn't scream, just added his name to the top of her list right above his son's. Then she got up, washed herself in the basin with water so cold it burned, and buried the penny in the dirt floor, a grave marker for her dignity. The visits became regular after that. 2, sometimes 3 times a week. Master Harlan would come to her cabin after everyone was asleep. Sometimes he'd talk first, complaining about his debts, his dissatisfying wife, his worries about the plantation. Other times he'd just take what he wanted and leave. And every single time Lila smiled and said, "Yes, sir, master. Whatever pleases you, sir." In the daytime, she'd serve breakfast to him and Mistress Eliza, pouring coffee with steady hands while the mistress complained about the weather, the servants, the latest fashions from Savannah. If Eliza suspected anything, and Lord knows women always sense these things, she never said it outright. Just treated Lila with increasing coldness, assigning her the worst tasks, scrubbing the chamber pots, washing blood-stained sheets, cleaning out the fireplace ash. 4 months passed, then Lila's monthly bleeding stopped. She knew immediately what it meant. Felt it in her bones even before her belly started to swell. She was carrying Master Harlan's child, the result of those nighttime violations. The knowledge sat in her stomach like spoiled food, making her retch every morning into the slop bucket. Aunt Dinah noticed first, pulled her aside one day and whispered, "Chile, you breeding again. Who the—" She stopped, looking at Lila's face, and understanding dawned like a terrible sunrise. "Oh, sweet Jesus, no." "Don't speak it," Lila said, her smile fixed in place even though her eyes were dead. "Don't ever speak it out loud." But bodies don't keep secrets long. By 6 months, her belly was obvious, and worse, the baby was light. You could tell by the way she carried it, high and different from how she'd carried Isaiah's children. When the child was born, a boy with skin like cafe au lait and Master Harlan's gray eyes, the whole plantation knew. Mistress Eliza came to Lila's cabin the day after the birth, stood in the doorway looking at that light-skinned baby, and her face twisted with rage and shame and something like grief. "You seduced him," she hissed, though her voice shook. "You Jezebel, you—" "No, ma'am," Lila said softly, holding the baby close, that smile never leaving. "I never done nothing but obey, ma'am, just like you taught me." The truth hung between them, both women knowing what really happened, but only one with the power to name it. Mistress Eliza chose to blame the victim, as mistresses always did. Easier than admitting your husband was a rapist. Easier than facing your own powerlessness. "Get that child away from the big house," Eliza said finally. "I don't want to see its face." The baby, whom Lila named Samuel after nobody in particular, nursed at her breast while she worked. She carried him everywhere, strapped to her back in a cloth, because she knew, deep in her soul, that they'd take this one too. Master Harlan visited her less after Samuel was born, ashamed maybe or just bored of her. But the damage was done. Samuel was evidence, a walking testimony to the master's sins, and evidence in the world of the plantation had to be disappeared. 3 months after Samuel was born, Lila overheard Master Harlan talking to a slave trader in the parlor. She was serving tea, invisible as always, when she heard, "The baby, the light one, can you take him?" Her hands didn't shake, the smile didn't slip, but inside something crystallized, hardened, became sharp as a blade. That night she went to the swamp. Samuel grew fast in those first months, his gray eyes watching everything with an intelligence that seemed unnatural for a baby. Lila loved him fierce despite how he came to be. He was innocent after all. Just another victim of Master Harlan's wickedness. She'd whisper to him while nursing, "You ain't your daddy's sins, baby. You ain't nothing but my boy." But the plantation had eyes, and tongues wagged cruel. The field hands muttered when she passed, "Housewoman done laid with the master." The other house servants treated her cold, like she'd chosen this violation, like it was ambition instead of assault. Only Aunt Dinah and Isaiah understood, and Isaiah, poor broken Isaiah, couldn't even look at the light-skinned baby without his face crumpling in pain. "I know he ain't your doing," Isaiah said to her one evening by the well, his voice hoarse. "I know. But Lord help me, Lila, it hurts to see Master Harlan's eyes in that child's face." "I know," she replied, holding Samuel close. "But he's still mine, still ours in a way. Every child born in bondage belongs to all of us." Isaiah nodded slowly, touched the baby's tiny hand. "You right, we all suffering together." Mistress Eliza's hatred grew like kudzu, choking everything. She'd accidentally bump into Lila carrying Samuel. Hoping the baby would fall, she'd assign impossible tasks. "Scrub the entire veranda by sundown and keep that baby quiet or I'll have Cobb whip you both." She poisoned the atmosphere of the big house till even Master Harlan noticed. "Eliza, enough," he snapped one night at supper, after she'd accidentally knocked hot soup onto Lila's arm, scalding her. "The girl's useful. Leave her be." "That baby is a constant reminder of your adultery," Eliza shrieked, finally saying what everyone knew. "Every time I see it, I see your betrayal." Master Harlan's face went dark. He stood up slow, and for a moment Lila thought he might strike his wife. Instead, he turned to Lila, who was standing in the corner with Samuel strapped to her back, and his face was cold as February frost. "How old is the boy now?" he asked. 3 months, sir," Lila replied, her smile in place. "That's old enough." He sat back down, cut into his beef. "I'll send word to the trader. We'll settle the rest of the Savannah debt with him." Time stopped. The air in the room went thick as molasses. Lila's smile stayed fixed, but something behind her eyes, something that had been human, finally died completely. "Yes, sir, Master Harlan," she said, her voice sweet. "Whatever you think best, sir." Mistress Eliza smiled for the first time in months. The trader came 3 days later, a fat man named Guthrie with tobacco-stained teeth and a wagon already half full of purchased children. Lila watched from the kitchen window as Master Harlan counted out the money, as Guthrie inspected Samuel like he was livestock, checking his limbs, his teeth, his skin tone. "Light enough to fetch good money in the Carolinas," Guthrie said, nodding approval. "They like 'em nearly white for housework. I'll give you 400. "Done," Master Harlan said, shaking his hand. They told Lila to bring Samuel to the yard. She walked out with him in her arms, that baby cooing and reaching for her face, not understanding what was about to happen. The other enslaved folks gathered at a distance, silent witnesses to another family being ripped apart. Lila handed Samuel to Guthrie with steady hands. The baby started crying immediately, reaching back for his mama, his little face scrunching up in confusion and fear. "And Lila?" She smiled wide, waved at him gentle. "You be good now, Samuel," she called out, her voice cheerful. "Mind your manners, baby boy." Guthrie loaded Samuel into the wagon with the other crying children. Master Harlan counted his money. Mistress Eliza watched from the veranda, satisfaction on her pale face. The wagon rolled away, taking Lila's last child with it. When they were gone, Lila turned and walked back to the big house. Walked right past Aunt Dinah, who tried to embrace her. Walked past Isaiah, who stood there with tears streaming down his face. Walked into the kitchen and started preparing the evening meal like nothing had happened. "Lila?" Aunt Dinah followed her inside. "Chilly, you can let it out. You can cry." "Ain't nothing to cry about," Lila said, her smile bright as she chopped onions. "Master needed money, baby was sold. That's how it is." Her hands moved mechanical, precise. "Now I got supper to cook." But that night, after everyone slept, Lila walked out to the swamp. Not to cry, not to pray. She walked deep into them muddy waters where the cypress trees grew thick and Spanish moss hung like funeral shrouds. She walked till she found the place the old folks whispered about, where the roots grew strange, where the water ran black, where the conjure women went to gather power. She knelt in the mud, placed her hands flat on the earth, and spoke to whatever spirits lived there. 3 children you took from me, she whispered to the darkness. Elijah, Mercy, Samuel, 3 children torn from my arms. Master Harlan, Mistress Eliza, young Master Thomas. They all had a hand in this suffering. A nightbird called out, harsh and lonely. I'm calling in the debt now, Lila continued, her voice steady. I'm done being obedient, done smiling. I want justice and I'll pay whatever price you ask. The swamp was silent for a long moment. Then in the darkness she saw them. Strange mushrooms growing in a perfect circle, pale as death in the moonlight. Destroying angel mushrooms, some called them. One of the old root women had pointed them out years ago. Don't touch them, Chili. They look harmless, but they'll kill you slow and certain. Lila reached out and plucked 3 of them, wrapping them careful in her apron. As she stood to leave, she could have sworn she heard her mama's voice on the wind. Do what you must, Amina. We with you. Walking back to the quarters, her smile returned. But this time it wasn't armor. It was a promise. The day Samuel was sold started ordinary enough. Sun rising red over the cotton fields, roosters crowing, the horn blowing to wake the enslaved for another day of endless labor. But for Lila, time had split in 2. There was the before, when she still had 1 child left to hold, and the after, when her arms were empty forever. She'd prepared Master Harlan's breakfast that morning with extra care. Grits smooth as silk, bacon fried crisp, biscuits golden and buttered. Smiled when she served it. Good morning, Master. I hope everything's to your liking, sir. He barely looked up from his newspaper. Fine, Lila, where's that baby of yours? Trader's coming at noon. He's ready, sir, she replied, her voice steady as a river stone. I dressed him in his good shirt, sir, want him to look presentable. Mistress Eliza sipped her coffee, watching Lila over the rim. You're taking this well, she said, suspicion in her tone. Most of you people carry on something terrible when we sell your pickaninnies. Ain't no use fightin' what can't be changed, ma'am, Lila said, that smile never wavering. Master knows best. He always knows best. The lie tasted like ash, but she swallowed it down. When Guthrie the trader arrived, his wagon rattling with chains and misery, Lila brought Samuel out. The baby, barely able to sit up on his own, reached for her face, gurgling happy because he didn't know. Didn't understand that his mama was about to hand him to a stranger who'd sell him like a sack of flour. Here he is, sir, Lila said to Guthrie, her smile bright. Strong and healthy. Got his teeth coming in already? Guthrie took Samuel, examined him rough. The baby started crying, confused by the strange hands. Light-skinned, Guthrie noted. Good bone structure. Yeah, he'll fetch a premium in Charleston. House servant material. Master Harlan counted the $400 twice, then nodded. Pleasure doing business. They loaded Samuel into the wagon with 3 other children, 2 girls and a boy, all crying, all reaching for mamas who stood at a distance, held back by overseers with whips. The mothers wailed, screamed, tore at their clothes. But Lila? She waved, smiling like Samuel was just going on a pleasant trip. Bye-bye, baby. You be good now. Isaiah watched from near the cotton gin, his body bent like a tree struck by lightning. He looked at Lila, and in his eyes was a question. How can you smile? She looked back, and for just a heartbeat, her smile turned into something else, something cold and final. Then it was back, sweet as molasses. The wagon rolled away down that red dirt road, dust rising like spirits of the dead. Samuel's cries faded into distance, and Lila turned, walked back to the big house, and asked Mistress Eliza, "What would you like for supper tonight, ma'am?" "Roast chicken," Eliza said, studying her, "with all the fixings. Master Harlan's brother is joining us to celebrate clearing the debt." "Yes, ma'am, I'll make it special." That night, Lila cooked like she was possessed, roasted the chicken with herbs, made gravy from the drippings. baked cornbread with honey, prepared collard greens with ham hock. The kitchen filled with smells that made mouths water. She hummed while she worked. Old spirituals, songs about crossing over, about going home. Aunt Dinah came to help but stopped in the doorway, watching Lila move around the kitchen with that fixed smile. "Chilly," she whispered. "You scaring me. You ain't right in the head." "I'm fine, Auntie," Lila replied, stirring the gravy smooth. "Just cooking supper. Just being obedient like I always been." "That smile ain't natural. Not after what happened today." Lila paused, looked at the old woman and spoke soft. "Auntie, you remember them destroying angel mushrooms you showed me once? The white ones that grow in the swamp?" Aunt Dinah's eyes went wide. "Why you asking about?" She stopped, understanding flooding her face. "Lila, no, Chile, they'll hang you." They already killed me," Lila interrupted, her smile never leaving. "When they sold Elijah, when they let Thomas hurt Mercy, when Master Harlan came to my cabin night after night, when they ripped Samuel from my arms this morning. I've been dead, Auntie, just waiting for my body to catch up." The old woman backed away, crossing herself. "I ain't seen nothing. I ain't heard nothing." "That's right," Lila said gently. "You ain't." After Aunt Dinah left, Lila reached into her apron pocket and pulled out the mushrooms she'd gathered from the swamp, white as bone, innocent looking. She'd studied them careful, learned from the old root knowledge passed down quiet. Destroying angels killed slow, symptoms looking like stomach sickness at first, then liver failure days later. No antidote, no cure. She chopped them fine, mixed them into the gravy. The poison was tasteless, invisible, perfect. When she carried the supper into the dining room, the Harlan family was already seated. Master Harlan at the head, Mistress Eliza beside him, young Master Thomas across from them, and the brother who'd come to celebrate. "Smells wonderful, Lila," Master Harlan said, breathing deep. "Thank you, sir," she replied, setting plates before each of them. "I made it special, just for y'all." She poured gravy over everything, generous portions, making sure they all got plenty. Then she stepped back, hands folded, smile in place, and watched them eat. But that night, the night she served the poisoned gravy, Lila held back. At the last moment, standing in that dining room watching the Harlan family about to eat, something stopped her hand. Not mercy, not fear, but calculation. Too soon, a voice whispered in her head. Maybe her mama's, maybe the ancestors', maybe her own survival instinct. "You do this now, they'll know it was you. They'll hang you before you can see them suffer proper. Wait, learn, be patient." "Lila, why are you just standing there?" Mistress Eliza snapped. "Fetch the wine." "Yes, ma'am, right away, ma'am." She went to the kitchen, dumped the poisoned gravy down the slop drain, and made fresh. Her hands were shaking. First time in years that smile had cracked even a little. She'd been so close to ending it all. But the voice was right. She needed to be smarter, needed to learn more, test more, make sure when she struck it would be clean. Final, with no trail leading back to her. So began Lila's education in death. She started small, like any good student. The plantation had rats in the barn, so she volunteered to handle the problem. "Let me make some poison bait, Master Harlan. I know roots and such from the old folks." "Good idea," he agreed. "Been needing those vermin gone." She mixed destroying angel mushrooms with cornmeal and lard, left it in the barn. By morning, 7 rats lay dead. She studied their bodies, the way they'd writhed, the foam around their mouths, the time between eating and dying. Took notes in her head since she couldn't write. Then she tested on the chickens. "This one's sick anyway, Master," she'd say, pointing to a perfectly healthy hen. "Best to cull it." She'd feed it different amounts of mushroom powder, watching how long it took, what symptoms appeared. Learning the dosage, Uncle Josiah noticed. That old man saw everything, even bent over his cane and half blind. He found her one evening by the chicken coop, grinding dried mushrooms with a mortar and pestle she'd borrowed from the root doctor's cabin. "Chilly," he said quietly. "What you doing?" Lila's smile was automatic. "Just making medicine, Uncle, for the sick animals." "That ain't healing medicine." His milky eyes somehow saw straight through her. "That's killing medicine. I know 'cause my grandmother was a conjure woman back in the islands. She taught me things before they sold me here." He moved closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "You planning what I think you planning?" For a long moment, Lila didn't answer. Then, slowly, her smile changed, became real for the first time in forever, but real in a terrible way. "What you think I'm planning, Uncle?" He looked toward the big house, its windows glowing warm with lamplight. The Harlan family inside eating supper, laughing, living their lives built on the broken backs of the enslaved. When he turned back to Lila, his eyes were wet. "Vengeance," he said simply. "The kind that comes from years of suffering. The kind that's been building since they stole us from Africa." He paused. "The kind I've been too old and broken to take myself." "You gonna tell?" Lila asked, not threatening, just curious. "Tell." Uncle Josiah laughed, a sound like dry leaves rustling. "Chile, I'm gonna help." And he did. Over the next months, Uncle Josiah taught Lila everything his grandmother had taught him. About Jimson weed that caused madness. About water hemlock that stopped the heart. About nightshade berries that looked innocent but killed in hours. About the sacred knowledge of African plant medicine twisted into weapons of resistance. "Our people been using this knowledge for centuries," he explained one night in his cabin, firelight flickering on the walls. "Back in the islands, in Haiti, in South Carolina, in Louisiana, everywhere the enslaved been, we learned what plants could free us. Sometimes by healing, sometimes by..." He gestured toward the small bundles of dried roots and mushrooms Lila had collected. "Other means." She learned to disguise the taste, mixing poisons with strong spices, with salt pork, with molasses. Learned which combinations worked fastest, which worked slowest. Learned how to dose it so symptoms looked like natural illness, fever, stomach trouble, weakness. She tested on more animals, always with permission, always with that obedient smile. "Master, the hog's been acting strange. Should I slaughter it?" Then she'd feed it her latest mixture, watch it die, study the timeline. But the whole time she kept working in the big house, kept serving the family, kept that smile fixed. Master Harlan still came to her cabin sometimes, though less often now. She'd endure it, mechanical, her mind elsewhere, calculating, planning, refining. Mercy, now 10 years old, had grown quiet and hollow-eyed from Thomas's torments. She rarely smiled anymore, even the fake smile. Isaiah was a ghost, barely alive. The other enslaved folks whispered about Lila. Something ain't right with that woman. She too calm, too happy after losing all her babies. Only Uncle Josiah understood. He'd watch her from his spot by the quarters, nodding approval as she moved through her days with that patient, terrible smile. "You about ready?" he asked her one evening, 6 months after Samuel was sold. Lila looked at the big house, at the family inside, at the life she'd been forced to serve. She touched the small leather pouch around her neck, hidden under her dress, where she kept her most potent mixtures. "Almost," she said. "Need one more thing. Need the perfect moment, need them all together, relaxed, unsuspecting." "Patience is a virtue," Uncle Josiah said. "And revenge," Lila replied, her smile sharp as a blade, "is justice." While Lila was learning the language of poison, the quarters was learning to hate her. Can't blame him, really. Fear and suffering make folks turn on each other, and Lila had become something they couldn't understand. A woman who smiled after losing 3 children. A woman who served the master's meals without complaint. A woman who seemed to have privileges while they broke their backs in the fields. "House snugger," they'd mutter when she passed. "Think she better than us." The worst was Dinah, not Aunt Dinah, but young Dinah. A field hand with fire in her eyes and bitterness in her heart. She'd lost 2 children herself, sold downriver, and it had turned her mean. Saw Lila's composure as betrayal of their shared suffering. "Look at her," Dinah would say loud enough for Lila to hear, standing with the other field women by the well, smiling like she ain't got a care in the world, like she forgot what they did to her babies, probably glad they gone so she can sleep in the big house, eat better food, wear better clothes. The accusation stung because they looked true from outside. Lila did sleep in a better cabin, did eat leftovers from the master's table, did wear hand-me-down dresses from Mistress Eliza instead of the rough Osnaburg cloth of the field hands. What they couldn't see was the price she paid. Master Harlan's nighttime visits, the constant surveillance, the way she had to perform gratitude for her own oppression every single day. One Sunday after the Praise House service, Dinah confronted her direct. "You think you special, don't you? Think because you work inside, you above the rest of us?" Lila's smile never wavered. "I don't think nothing like that, sister. We all in the same boat." "Same boat?" Dinah laughed harsh. "My back got whip scars. My hands bleed from cotton. You got soft hands and a full belly. Don't call me sister." Other folks gathered, watching. The tension in the quarters had been building for months, and now it was boiling over. Isaiah tried to step forward. "Leave her be, Dinah. You don't know what she endures." But the woman whirled on him. "You defending her? You always defending her, even after she birthed the master's baby. You pathetic." Isaiah's face crumpled, and Lila saw the pain flash across it. That old wound, still raw. "Enough," Lila said quietly, but Dinah wasn't done. "I seen you," Dinah hissed, stepping closer. "Seen you sneaking out late at night, going to the swamp, coming back with that little pouch around your neck. You working roots, ain't you, doing conjure? Who you trying to curse, housewoman? One of us. Or maybe..." Her eyes narrowed. "Maybe you planning something else entirely." The air went still. Dangerous. If Dinah started talking about Lila's nighttime gatherings, started questioning what was in that pouch, word might reach the overseers. And if the overseers got curious, if they searched her cabin, found the dried mushrooms, the powdered roots, Lila's smile grew wider, sweeter. "I don't know what you talking about, Dinah. I just go to the swamp to pray sometimes. Talk to the ancestors. That ain't no crime." "You lying," Dinah spat. "And I'm gonna tell Overseer Cobb that you been what?" Uncle Josiah's voice cut through, sharp despite his age. He shuffled forward, placing himself between the women. "Been grieving her children in private? Been asking the spirits for strength? That what you gonna tell Cobb? That a suffering woman seeks comfort in the old ways?" The crowd murmured, shifting. Uncle Josiah was respected. His word carried weight. "She ain't natural," Dinah insisted, but her voice had lost some of its certainty. "Ain't normal to smile like that. Ain't normal to be so calm. Something wrong with her." "Something wrong with all of us," Uncle Josiah replied. "We enslaved, we beaten, we sold. We suffering every day. Don't turn on each other, that's what they want. For us to fight amongst ourselves instead of seeing the real enemy." He gestured toward the big house, sitting pretty on its hill, lamplight glowing warm in its windows. Dinah followed his gaze, and for a moment something like understanding passed over her face. But then she looked back at Lila, and the anger returned. "I'm watching you," she warned. "And if I catch you doing anything to endanger the rest of us, I will tell. I don't care if they whip me for speaking up." "Fair enough," Lila said simply. The crowd dispersed, returning to their cabins. But the damage was done. Lila knew she'd have to be more careful now. Dinah was watching, suspicious, and one wrong move could unravel everything. That night, Isaiah came to her cabin. "You need to be careful," he whispered. "Dinah ain't playing. She really will tell if she sees something." "I know," Lila replied, grinding herbs with her mortar and pestle. "But she won't see nothing. I'll be more careful." "Lila." Isaiah sat on the edge of her bed, his voice breaking. "What you planning, really?" She stopped grinding, looked at him with those eyes that had seen too much. "Justice," she said simply. "For Elijah, for Mercy, for Samuel. For you, for every one of us who've been broken by this place. Justice or revenge. What's the difference?" She resumed grinding. "They took everything from us. I'm just evening the ledger. They'll kill you," he said, tears streaming down his scarred face. "When they find out, and they will find out, they'll hang you. Or worse." Lila set down the pestle, took his hands in hers. "Then I'll die free," she said. "Die knowing I struck back. Die knowing they paid. That's more than most of us get." He pulled her close, held her like he could keep her safe through sheer will. "When?" he whispered. "Soon," she replied. "Very soon." Winter came to Georgia like a beggar, cold but not freezing, damp but not snow. The cotton fields lay bare, waiting for spring planting. The enslaved folks had more time in the evenings now, less field work, more mending and repairing in preparation for the next season. For Lila, it meant more hours in the big house, more time watching the Harlan family, more opportunities to study their habits. She'd learned their rhythms like a song. Master Harlan took his whiskey at 7 each evening, 2 fingers in a crystal glass. Mistress Eliza sipped laudanum from a silver spoon before bed, claiming it helped her nerves. Young Master Thomas ate like a hog at trough, never leaving food on his plate. The patterns were predictable, exploitable, but Lila knew she needed the perfect moment, a time when they'd all be together, relaxed, unsuspecting, a time when she could serve them one final meal and slip away before the poison took hold. She needed hours, maybe a full day, to disappear into the swamps and follow the North Star toward freedom. The opportunity came in the form of an announcement. "Lila," Mistress Eliza called one morning while Lila was scrubbing the parlor floor. "Master Harlan's birthday is coming next month, February 23rd. We're planning a celebration, just family, nothing elaborate. But I want a feast prepared. Your best cooking, can you manage that?" Lila's smile bloomed like a poisonous flower. "Yes, ma'am. I'll make it real special. A meal they'll never forget." "Good. Make a list of what you'll need from town. We'll send Cobb to fetch supplies." That night, Lila sat in her cabin with Uncle Josiah, the fire burning low, and laid out her plan in whispers. February 23rd. A celebration meal. All of them together at one table. It's perfect. Uncle Josiah nodded slowly, his old eyes reflecting the flames. "How you planning to dose it?" "Multiple dishes," Lila explained, her mind sharp as a blade. "Put small amounts in several things, the gravy, the pie, the wine sauce. That way if one person eats less of something, they still get enough from the others. And I'll use the destroying angels mixed with water hemlock root. The symptoms start slow, stomach pain, vomiting. Looks like bad food at first. By the time they realize it's poison, I'll be gone." "How long they got once they eat it?" "Based on what I tested, 6 to 12 hours before the real suffering starts. 2 to 3 days before the end." Her voice was calm, clinical. "I'll serve supper at 6. By midnight, I'll be deep in the swamp. By dawn, I'll be following the moss north. By the time they're dying, I'll be in the next county." Uncle Josiah was quiet for a long moment. "You thought about what comes after? They'll hunt you, dogs, patrollers, slave catchers. They'll search every swamp, every road, every safe house." "I know," Lila said, "but I also know the routes. Been listening to folks whisper about the Underground Railroad for years. There's a station near Macon, a Quaker family that helps runaways. If I can make it there, that's a big if, Chili." "I know." She looked at him directly. "But I'd rather die trying to be free than live one more day smiling for people who sold my babies." He reached out, placed his gnarled hand over hers. "Your mama would be proud, scared but proud. What about you, Uncle?" "When they find out I'm gone, they'll question everyone. Might suspect you helped." "I'm 83 years old," he said with a dry laugh. "Been enslaved since I was 6. What they gonna do to me I ain't already survived. Besides, I ain't knowing nothing. Just a blind old man who sits by the fire telling stories." They spent the next weeks preparing. Lila gathered her poisons carefully, drying and grinding them into fine powder. She sewed a hidden pocket into her dress where she could carry the mixture. She stole bits of food, hardtack, dried meat, and hid them in a cloth bundle. She studied the night sky, memorizing the constellations that pointed north. And she watched Mercy, her daughter who'd become a shadow of herself under Thomas's cruelties. One night, she pulled the girl aside. "Baby," Lila whispered, Mama might have to go away soon, might have to leave sudden like, you understand? Mercy's hollow eyes filled with tears. You running? Maybe. Can't say for sure. But if I do, you remember what I taught you. Keep your head down, survive. One day when you older, when you stronger, you run too. Follow the drinking gourd north. Be free. Take me with you, Mercy begged. Please, Mama. Lila's heart cracked, but she shook her head. You too young, baby. They'd catch us both, but I promise, this ain't goodbye forever. In this life or the next, we'll be together again. She held her daughter close, breathing in her scent, memorizing the feel of her in her arms. Then she let go. The days crawled toward February 23rd. Mistress Eliza approved Lila's menu. Roasted duck, sweet potatoes, collard greens, cornbread, apple pie with cream. All perfect vehicles for poison. 3 days before the celebration, Dinah cornered Lila by the wash house. I know you planning something, she hissed. I seen you gathering herbs. Seen you talking secret with Uncle Josiah. Whatever it is, I'm warning you. If you bring trouble on the rest of us, I'll stop you myself. Lila looked at her, and for the first time, the smile dropped completely. Then stop me, she said quietly. Go tell Overseer Cobb right now that you suspect I'm working roots. Tell him to search my cabin. See what happens. Dinah hesitated, seeing something dangerous in Lila's eyes. You won't tell, Lila continued, because deep down you know they deserve whatever's coming. You just too scared to do it yourself. Dinah's face twisted with rage and shame and something like recognition. She turned and walked away without another word. 2 days until the birthday feast. Lila sharpened the kitchen knives, humming spirituals, her smile back in place. February 23rd arrived cold and clear. The sky washed blue like God had scrubbed it clean for what was coming. Lila woke before dawn, her heart steady, her mind clear. She'd slept dreamless for the first time in years. No nightmares of the Middle Passage, no phantom cries of her stolen children. Just darkness, peace. She dressed carefully, put on her cleanest apron, tied her head wrap tight. In the hidden pocket sewn into her dress, she carried the powder, destroying angel mushrooms mixed with water hemlock root, ground fine as flour, enough to kill 4 people slow and certain. The big house was already stirring when she entered through the kitchen door. Mistress Eliza was directing the housemaids to polish every surface, hang fresh curtains, arrange flowers in vases. This needs to be perfect, she kept saying. Master Harlan's 45th birthday deserves elegance. Yes, ma'am, Lila replied, her smile bright. Everything gonna be perfect, I promise. She worked all morning, preparing the feast with hands that had cooked 1,000 meals for this family. Roasted the duck until the skin was crispy, the meat tender. Made sweet potato casserole with brown sugar and butter. Cooked collard greens with ham hock till they were silky. Baked cornbread golden and fluffy. And for dessert, apple pie with a lattice crust, served with fresh cream. The poison went in gradually, methodically. A pinch in the duck gravy, a bit more in the butter for the sweet potatoes, a careful measure in the cream for the pie. She wore gloves, stolen from Mistress Eliza's sewing basket, so none of the powder would touch her own skin. Every movement was deliberate, calm, like she was performing a sacred ritual. Uncle Josiah appeared at the kitchen door mid-afternoon, leaning on his cane. How it going, Chiley? Almost ready, Lila said quietly. Just the pie left to bake. You sure about this? Once it's done, ain't no taking it back. I've been sure since the day they sold Elijah, she replied. Since the night Master Harlan first came to my cabin. Since they ripped Samuel from my arms. This ain't sudden, Uncle. This been building for years. He nodded slowly. Then may the ancestors guide your path. May they carry you north on wings of wind. Thank you, Uncle. She hugged him, quick and fierce, for everything, for understanding, for not stopping me. Some things can't be stopped, he said. Some things got to happen for the world to balance out. By 5:30, the dining room was set beautiful. China plates, crystal glasses, silver candlesticks burning bright. Master Harlan sat at the head of the table in his best suit, already on his second whiskey. Mistress Eliza wore her pearls in a dress from Savannah. Young Master Thomas had slicked his hair back, looking like a younger version of his daddy. Same cold eyes, same entitled smirk. Lila began serving at 6 o'clock exactly, her smile radiant. My, Master Harlan said as she set the roasted duck before him. This looks magnificent, Lila. You've outdone yourself. Thank you, sir. Happy birthday, Master. I wanted to make tonight real special. She served each dish carefully, making sure everyone got generous portions. Poured the gravy thick over everything, sliced the pie large, dolloped the cream heavy. Eat up, she said sweetly. I made plenty, and they did. Lord, how they ate. Master Harlan took seconds of the sweet potatoes. Mistress Eliza praised the duck. Thomas devoured 3 pieces of cornbread soaked in gravy. They laughed and talked about plantation business, about cotton prices, about which enslaved folks they might sell in the spring to cover new debts. That Dinah in the fields, Master Harlan said, chewing his duck. She's been mouthy lately. Might fetch a good price. And old Uncle Josiah is dead weight, Thomas added. Too old to work. Should just let him die or sell him cheap to the knacker. They discussed human lives like livestock while Lila stood in the corner, holding a serving tray, that smile never wavering even as rage burned in her chest. She watched every bite they took, counting, calculating. At 7:30, after they'd finished the pie and were sipping coffee in the parlor, Mistress Eliza suddenly pressed her hand to her stomach. Oh, she said, I feel a bit queasy. Probably ate too much, Master Harlan said, but his face had gone pale too. I'm feeling rather poorly myself. Thomas stood up quickly. I need to… Excuse me. He rushed toward the necessary, hand over his mouth. Lila, Mistress Eliza called weakly. Fetch the chamber pot. I think the food… Yes, ma'am, Lila said, still smiling. Right away, ma'am. She brought the chamber pot, helped Mistress Eliza to her room as the woman started retching. Brought water when Master Harlan called for it, his voice hoarse from vomiting. Cleaned up after Thomas, who was sweating and groaning on the bathroom floor. Must have been bad meat, Master Harlan gasped between spasms. Or he's something spoiled. I'm so sorry, sir, Lila said, her concern sounding genuine. Should I fetch the doctor? Yes, get Dr. Morrison. Tell him to hurry. Right away, sir. Lila walked out of the big house into the February night. The stars were bright overhead, the North Star burning clear and steady. From the quarters she heard a hymn being sung. Steal away, steal away, steal away to Jesus. She didn't fetch the doctor. She walked to her cabin, picked up the small bundle she'd hidden under the floorboards. Food, a knife, a blanket. She said goodbye to Isaiah, who kissed her fierce and whispered, Fly, Lila, fly far. She kissed Mercy one last time, memorizing her face. I love you, baby. Never forget that. Then she walked into the darkness, into the swamp, following the moss that grew on the north side of the trees, following the stars, following the promise of freedom. Behind her, in the big house, the Harlan family was dying. Dawn broke over the Harlan plantation like Judgment Day, red sky streaking through the pines, crows circling overhead calling harsh and hungry. In the quarters, folks woke to an unnatural silence. The big house horn hadn't blown. No overseer was yelling for field hands to rise. Something was wrong. Aunt Dinah was the first to notice. She'd come to the big house kitchen early to help prepare breakfast, and found the door standing open. No fire in the stove, no Lila preparing morning coffee. Strange. Mighty strange. She walked through the house calling out, Miss Eliza, Master Harlan. Her voice echoed in empty hallways. Then she smelled it, the sour stench of sickness, of death starting to creep in. The parlor was a scene from hell itself. Master Harlan lay twisted on the floor, his body contorted. Foam dried around his mouth, eyes wide and staring at nothing. In the bedroom, Mistress Eliza was sprawled across the bed, her skin gray-white like spoiled milk, one hand clutching her stomach, the other reaching toward the laudanum bottle she'd never reach. Young Master Thomas was in the hallway, collapsed against the wall, vomit streaking his fine clothes, his face frozen in an expression of agony and disbelief. Aunt Dinah screamed so loud it brought the other house servants running. They saw the bodies and understood. Death had visited in the night, taken the whole family in one terrible sweep. Overseer Cobb came thundering up from his cabin, whip in hand, thinking it was a revolt. When he saw the scene, he went white as cotton. "Sweet Jesus," he whispered. "What happened here?" "They dead," Aunt Dinah said, her voice shaking. "All three of them. Dead." "Poison," Cobb said, his face hardening as realization struck. Someone poisoned them. His eyes swept the room, landing on the dining table still set from last night's feast, plates with remnants of food, glasses with wine dregs. "Who cooked this meal?" Silence heavy and damning. "I said, who cooked this goddamn meal?" "Lila," one of the housemaids whispered. "Lila cooked the birthday supper." "Where is she?" Cobb demanded. "Bring her here now." They searched, checked her cabin empty with signs of hasty departure, checked the kitchen, the laundry, the stables, gone, disappeared like smoke in the wind. "She ran," Cobb said, his voice turning vicious. "That smiling bitch poisoned them and ran." He turned to the field driver. "Get the dogs, get the patrollers. Send riders to every neighboring plantation. $100 reward for whoever brings her back. Alive." Young Dinah, the one who'd suspected Lila all along, stood in the doorway of the parlor staring at Master Harlan's corpse. Part of her felt vindicated. I knew she was planning something. But another part felt something else. Something like savage satisfaction. She'd hated Lila for seeming complicit, but now... She did it, Dinah whispered to herself. She actually did it. By noon, the whole county knew. Dr. Morrison arrived to examine the bodies, confirmed poison. Looks like mushroom toxicity based on the symptoms. Destroying angels, maybe water hemlock. Whoever did this knew their plants. The sheriff came from town, questioned the enslaved folks one by one. Uncle Josiah sat by the quarters, blind eyes staring at nothing when they questioned him. "I don't know nothing," he said, his voice quavering like a feeble old man. "I just an old slave who tells stories. Can't even see good no more. Don't know what happened up in that big house." Isaiah they questioned hard, knowing he was Lila's man. "Where'd she go?" they demanded, striking him across the face. "You helped her, didn't you?" "I don't know," Isaiah said, and for once he wasn't lying. Lila had been smart, told him nothing specific, just that she might leave. "She didn't tell me nothing, just... she gone." They searched the swamps with dogs and torches, but Lila had been clever about her escape. Walked through water to hide her scent, changed direction multiple times, followed paths only she and the old root women knew. The dogs lost her trail 3 miles into the bayou. Days passed. The Harlan plantation fell into chaos. No master to give orders, no mistress to run the household, no young master to inherit. The enslaved folks whispered in the quarters, voices mixing fear with something dangerous. Hope. "You think she made it?" someone asked Isaiah one night. He looked north toward where freedom lay and allowed himself the smallest smile. "She's smart. She patient. She'd been planning this for years. If anybody could make it..." He didn't finish, but the hope hung in the air like incense. The slave catchers searched for 2 weeks, put up posters, "Runaway slave." Lila, approximately 30 years, speaks well, always smiling. Dangerous, reward for capture. But Georgia was big, and the Underground Railroad had many stations, and a woman who could smile through the worst suffering knew how to become invisible when she needed to. Some folks said she died in the swamps, eaten by gators or succumbed to exposure. Others swore they saw her up in Tennessee, working as a free woman under a different name. A few claimed she made it all the way to Canada, where slavery's chains couldn't reach. The truth? Nobody knew for certain. Lila had disappeared like a ghost, like she'd never existed except in the memories of those who'd watched her smile through hell and finally strike back. Back at the plantation, creditors descended like vultures. The Harlan estate was sold to pay debts, land, equipment, and all the enslaved people. They were scattered to different buyers, families split again, the cycle of suffering continuing. But on the night of the auction, when they loaded the enslaved folks into wagons to take them to their new masters, Uncle Josiah stood in the yard and spoke loud enough for all to hear. "Remember this day, children. Remember that one of us stood up. One of us said enough. One of us made them pay." His blind eyes seemed to see everything. Her name was Lila, and she wore a smile like armor, but underneath was steel and fire. Don't never forget her. They say that plantation land stayed cursed after that. Nothing would grow right. New owners came and left, plagued by bad luck and strange sickness. Folks whispered it was Lila's spirit, still walking those grounds, still making sure the Harlan's legacy died with them. But I think her spirit was flying north, finally free. Lila ran through the Georgia night like she had wings on her feet, like the ancestors themselves were pushing her forward. The swamp welcomed her. Muddy water cool around her ankles, cypress trees standing guard like ancient sentinels, Spanish moss hanging down like the beards of old griots telling her, "Go, Chile, go." She'd been running for 3 hours when she heard them. The dogs. Their howling cut through the darkness like knives, distant but getting closer. Her heart hammered, but she didn't panic. She'd planned for this. Pulled out the bag of cayenne pepper she'd stolen from the kitchen, scattered it behind her to confuse their noses, walked through the creek water, letting it carry her scent away. The North Star blazed overhead, steady and true, and she followed it like Moses followed the pillar of fire. Every step was a prayer, every breath a declaration. I am free. I am free. I am finally free. By dawn, she was 10 miles from the plantation, hidden in the hollow of an old oak tree, catching her breath while patrollers rode past not 20 feet away. She pressed her hand over her mouth to silence her breathing, and in that moment, she thought of her children, Elijah, Mercy, Samuel. Wherever they were, whatever master owned them now, she prayed they'd survive. Prayed one day they'd be free too. 3 days of running, 3 nights following the drinking gourd constellation, eating the dried food she'd packed, drinking from streams, avoiding roads and towns. Her feet bled through her shoes. Her muscles screamed. But that smile, that cursed, blessed smile, stayed on her face because now it was real. Now it was triumph. On the 4th night, she found it. A farmhouse with a lantern burning in the window, and a quilt hanging on the clothesline with a particular pattern. The North Star quilt, signal of the Underground Railroad. A station, a safe house. She approached cautious, knocked soft. An elderly Quaker woman answered, took one look at Lila's worn face, her bloody feet, her desperate eyes, and said simply, "Come in, friend. Thee is safe here." Lila collapsed inside, finally letting the tears come. Tears for her lost children, tears for Isaiah left behind, tears for all the years of suffering, but also tears of relief, of victory, of having struck back against those who'd tried to break her. "What's thy name?" the Quaker woman asked, offering bread and water. Lila paused, thinking. Then she spoke the name she'd buried so long ago, the name her mama gave her on the shores of Africa. Amina. My name is Amina. "Welcome, Amina. Rest now. Tomorrow we'll take thee further north." She rested, but her mind was awake, alive. The Harlan family was dead. Their empire of cruelty had fallen. One woman with a smile and a plan had brought down a dynasty built on bondage. Weeks later, she crossed into Pennsylvania, free soil, stood on that ground and felt something shift in her soul. The chains she'd carried since childhood, invisible but heavy, finally fell away. Years passed. Amina, no longer Lila, became a conductor on the Underground Railroad herself, helping others escape, teaching them the roots she'd learned, showing them how to hide pain behind smiles until the moment to strike. She never saw her children again, though she searched. Never saw Isaiah again, though she heard he'd been sold south after the plantation dissolved. But she lived free. Lived knowing she'd taken justice into her own hands when no one else would give it. And on quiet nights, Sitting by the fire in her small cabin in Canada, she'd tell her story to other freedom seekers, about the slave who smiled through every cruelty, who seemed obedient until the night she served death on fine china, who walked away from bondage and never looked back. Remember, she'd tell them, her voice strong, they can take everything, your name, your family, your dignity, but they can't take your will to survive. They can't take your capacity for justice. And most of all, they can't take your right to be free. The smile she wore now was different. Not armor, not weapon, but genuine peace. The smile of a woman who'd paid the price for liberation and found it worth every cost. Who suffered, who resisted, left memory, and memory we keep here, in the echoes from the quarters. Where the chains still rattle, where the spirituals still sing, where the ones who fought back live forever in the telling. Remember Amina. Remember Lila. Remember them all.